There's a candlelight march every year for Harvey Milk and George Moscone, who were assassinated in 1978. Cleve Jones is one of the organizers of that. He was a good friend of Harvey's. And in 1985, the number of people in the Castro in San Francisco who had died of AIDS had passed 1,000. That's 1,000 people in a 10-block neighborhood. So Cleve asked people to bring placards with the names of people they knew that had died of AIDS, simple handwritten signs, just to try to break out and to get people talking. And at the end of that candlelight march, they put the names up on the wall of the federal building, and it kind of looked like a giant crazy quilt. And Cleve just thought, well, if we had a quilt that had the names of people on it, it might help soften some of this. I don't think we ever envisioned this scale. The work that we were doing that first summer when we opened up the workshop on Market Street as really a community center for people in that neighborhood to come in and make panels, you know, it wasn't people with sewing skills. It wasn't the beautiful artistic quilt panels you see now. It was spray paint and bed sheets. It was people wanting to get the name and the basic story of someone down for the world to see. And it started out very much as a project of the Castro. And it really wasn't until later that summer that we realized the connection that this was having. We started getting panels in those last few weeks from every state. We also got people driving long distances to come drop off a panel and let go of it. We were taking our quilt to Washington. We were going to lay it down at the feet of our government and insist that they recognize these people. But we knew from the very beginning that we had something powerful. I think by the end of that display on October 11th, 1987, all at once the floodgate kind of opened and people were talking about HIV because the quilt was this odd attempt to be heard. And because I think it was so odd and not expected, it really resonated. I still remember when Sue Caves walked in from Long Beach, and she had a panel for her son Michael. She was kind of clutching the panel to her chest, and she walked in the door, and I'm sure she was uncertain about this environment she just walked into. And one of the volunteers went over and said, "Can we help with something?" She said, "Can I just stand here for a little bit?" The panel that she made and her daughter had worked on was a relatively simple panel. It didn't look like it had taken them weeks to do, but they had clearly put some love into it. But for some people, the process of making a panel can take days and weeks as you think about it. And for other people, the hard part is not making the panel, it's letting go of it. And Sue just held on to that panel and talked to a few people and went around and met some of the people working on panels and came over to me with it, and I introduced myself and said, you know, if there's a time when you want to let go of this, we're going to take good care of it. This is important to us. You can trust us with this. And she said, "There's no gravesite, you know. He was cremated. This is our grave." And I said, well, we're going to do everything we can to preserve it, and we're going to do everything we can to show it too. And she set it down on the table. We talked a little while longer, and eventually she pushed it across the table. But and she was a remarkable woman. She was one of the mothers that came to the first display and read names. That often happens. This is somebody's first step. They may not feel like they've got the skills to do emotional support for someone, or that they could take care of people in a medical setting, but they can do something modest by making a panel. And you'd be stunned to know how many people that simple act transformed. They blossom into activists, and they blossom into public speaking that you never would have thought they could do. And it comes just by them opening up this one time about their emotional personal experience.